I hate running. I don't enjoy running at all. I dislike it immensely. I don't entirely understand why we do it. I understand the reasoning, I understand the rationale, I understand the logic, but surely to God, there are better, more enjoyable ways of getting in shape than going for a run. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Trevors. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. I get to serve in the amazing parish of Christ Church, Shelburne, in the beautiful town of Shelburne, Nova Scotia, that sits on the ancestral and the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And today, I want to, you know what? Today I want to offer a little bit of a warning. See, lots of things are happening in our world. Lots of things are happening here in Canada and in the United States. Lots of changes are coming. A lot of people are working together. A lot of habits. A lot of learned responses and reactions and behaviors are being challenged, and most importantly, they're being changed. Now, changing a habit early on is actually really easy. If I say, well, I'm not going to eat cookies anymore, I can do that for a half hour or so. I might even be able to do that for a month. I might even be able to do that for a year or longer. The trick to breaking those kinds of habits, though, is that they were so ingrained in us that it requires us to continuously be aware of them and to be conscious of them and to be conscious of the temptations that lead to us giving into those habits. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, let me tell you a little story. I do run a little bit, and I think I mentioned this in a video in the past. I had difficulties with my legs, and especially my calf muscles, because I was running. Apparently, I didn't even know how to run. I was running really badly. I was running just purely with my calf muscles, of sort of bouncing off the road as I stepped. I would bounce off the path forward, and that was all calf muscle. And what I was doing, I was tearing my calf muscles to pieces. I was getting tired a lot quicker, and I was ending up with injuries and soreness in ways that I shouldn't have had injuries or soreness. When I realized that I was running wrong, I began using my quads, my hamstrings, my glutes, using my core a little bit more, begin using my arms. Apparently your arms are really important to running, positioning my body properly, the whole works. And when I did that, the pain in my calves went away because my calf muscles weren't being used. They weren't being overused. And because they weren't being overused, they weren't being asked to do things that they were never designed for, and because they weren't doing things they weren't designed for, injuries went away, fatigue went away. I was able to run longer. Despite my complaining, I was able to enjoy myself running. But the other day I noticed something. I went out for a run as my workout that day, and I was running along the waterfront. Beautiful waterfront, by the way. If you're ever in the area, you need to check it out. So I was running along the waterfront, and I was tired. It was a really super hot day. It was very muggy, and I had already run for probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes before I started doing these sprints that my conditioning workout. So I did my conditioning workout where I was sprinting up and down the street, and then walking a little bit, and then sprinting up and down the street, and then jogging a little bit. It was my jog home after I was really super tired that I noticed I was running my old way. I was running the way I used to run. My calves immediately started hurting. I could feel the pulls and the tears coming back to life. I could feel that I wasn't engaging these great big strong muscle groups in my body, and I was counting on these little ones. When I got fatigued, I forgot, and I went back to doing things the old way. There's a danger in that for us right across the board in every element of our life. Whenever we try to initiate a change in our life, whenever we try to act differently, to behave differently, to respond differently, to react differently than what we were trained to, than what we learned to, than what we are used to. When we are tired, those old ways have a really sneaky method of sneaking back into the forefront and becoming the thing that we do. So as we look around the world and we see all the different things here in Canada and the United States, the ways that we're trying to change in order to bring equality, in order to bring love, in order to bring justice to the forefront, to make sure that every human being is treated the same, to make sure that everybody has access to justice, to make sure that nobody has to walk through their own neighborhood, through anybody's neighborhood, in fear. We must be aware, we must be cognizant all the time, especially as we move forward, and maybe especially as we move away from these epicenters of passion and these instigators of change, these catalysts of change. We need to be aware that it's entirely possible that some of us will forget the new ways. The more we are aware that our old ways of seeing things, our old ways of thinking, our old ways of behaving, as long as we're aware that those things that they're always trying to claw their way back to the surface, then we can approach our life from a knowing position where we are working diligently, not necessarily just to suppress them, but to continually lift up, rise up our new ways. Continually exercise our new ways. Always be conscious of how we are moving, of how we are behaving, of how we are thinking. To never, ever allow ourselves to fall back into that autopilot way of being. We want to be there for our brothers and sisters all the time, from now on into the future. We want to teach our children and our youth a better way of living than what we grew up in, maybe, or what we learned growing up from our media sources and from our mentors, from our educators and from the people that trained us. We want to make sure that for the next generation, this is a better world. So be aware. Be aware that it's going to require us to be actively functioning, actively deciding to choose these new ways. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God make his face shine upon you. May God be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. And may you know the peace of being in God's presence. And as we go forward, I pray you will continually choose to use those new muscles, those new methods that the Lord has placed in your heart to make this a better world. Amen.